Welcome to Leverage Point On-Demand Training. In this installment, we will cover the fourth value modeling tab, Value Drivers. This video is part of a series introducing Leverage Point users to value modeling. If you have not watched the videos that precede this one, I recommend that you do so. Value drivers are the heart of a value model. They quantify the unique value that your offering provides to customers, either by reducing operating costs or increasing top-line revenue. If you haven't had any value training before, I do strongly suggest you read the white papers and blogs available on the Leverage Point website, as well as more videos in this series to better understand value drivers. As we open the Positive Value Drivers tab, we see that the benefits list we created from our last lesson are copied over. This is handy because you can think of value drivers as quantified customer benefits. There's also a link button here to analyze the specific relationships. In this case, we see that the benefits we covered in the last video are rows. The columns here are value drivers, which we'll cover in this video. While not required to build a value model, mapping benefits to potential value drivers can help when creating value drivers. Note that one benefit can map to multiple value drivers and vice versa. Now let's take a closer look at these value drivers. Let's open Reduce Energy Costs. This Edit Value Driver Formula dialog should look very familiar. It has the exact same functionality that we described in detail in our chapter about price components. First, notice how the main formula is set up. Variable A, current cost of energy with NTG per year, minus variable B, cost of energy for HVAC with BTR, gives us a value of $255,500 of savings per year. This method of calculating value is one of the two main ways in which you can structure your value drivers. Current costs minus proposed costs. Often it is the case that you will need to use subformulas to calculate your top-level A and B variable. So for the example here, the current cost of energy with NTG is a subformula. Click FX to open it. We see three variables that are multiplied together to estimate this cost. Now collapse the subformula and click OK to close this formula dialog. Next, we'll take a look at the Reduced Downtime value driver, which uses the second way to calculate value, X% better. That is, variable A states the current cost of lost productivity from downtime when using the competitor, and variable B states that our solution reduces downtime by 60%. Thus, A times B is our calculated value. Note that both value drivers selected a year as the unit of measure. Next, I'd like to show you how to create a new value driver. Here you have two options, Add Custom or Select Existing. I'll show Add Custom first because this is what you'll do most often. Begin by clicking Add Custom. A blank formula dialog appears. I'll create a simple practice formula to demonstrate how to create a value driver. First, I'll give my new value driver a name. To do that, I click New Value Driver and then type Reduce Labor Costs. Next, I'll add my first main variable. I click Add Variable to do so and type Current Labor Cost. Notice when I type Current that the type-ahead function will show all existing variables that match. But since I don't want to reuse any of those, I'll keep typing to establish my new variable, Current Labor Cost. After that, I'll add my second main variable. This one is Proposed Labor Cost. Next, I define my formula, A minus B. And of course, I need to define the appropriate unit of measure. Looking at the choices that I had previously set up, I'll choose year. My draft formula is now done, so let's click OK and then save. Now let's go back into the value driver to show you how to create a subformula. To edit, I click on that calculator icon. Then click the drop-down next to my variable name to open and choose Convert to Subformula. Now I'll add new variables exactly as I did before. Then define formula logic. Lastly, I can put some estimated numbers in the boxes. Now I have the total for this variable, $624,000. And I'll click the gray variable box to close this subformula. I could do the same for my proposed labor costs, but imagine my solution totally eliminates the labor costs needed for the competitor's solution. If our solution was some sort of automated process, there may be no need for labor. I could create a subformula to subtract current versus proposed, or create a 100% reduction variable, but I could also just leave current labor costs on their own. Either one of these solutions gives us the same economic value of $624,000 per year. So I'll go ahead and remove proposed labor costs and remove this variable. So that's the basics for how to build a new value driver. I'd like to take a moment and share some practical advice about value drivers. First, don't worry about not having all the data. Never let this be an excuse to avoid building value drivers. In reality, perfect data doesn't exist. Even if you do have it, it will change soon. What's more important is to clearly think about the logic of how your unique benefits impact the economics of your customers' both operating costs and revenue. Start with your best initial assumptions and then continually test it with your project team and sales partners to fine-tune the data and logic until it's in good enough shape to test with real customers. This is an iterative process that forces you to go into granular detail about how your customer uses your solution. All of this, of course, takes time and effort, but it's well worth doing. Finally, let me discuss the select existing option for adding a new value driver. There are a couple situations where you may want to use this. The first is when you want to reuse a value driver that you created or saw in a previous value model. I'll start by clicking Select Existing. This Select Existing dialog box appears. To make sure that you're reviewing value drivers from models in your instance, go to this From drop-down menu and select Value Models. We will review the other options in a later video. Suppose I remember a formula called Reduced Market Research Costs. I'll type that into the search bar and click Enter. Notice there are 3 direct matches and several other matches. I can narrow this list further by using the filters below. I'll click Global Region, and here is one exact match. I can view the details by clicking here. By clicking Add Here or Here, I am opting to add this value driver with all its variables and calculations into my model. I can then choose to import the data with this formula, meaning that the variables I import will keep their associated values, or not, just to get the variables and formulas with no values. In this case, I won't choose to import the data. Then I click OK. Now it's part of my model, and I can open it the same way that I did previously. Notice that the variables I added do not have any numbers associated with them. You can also use Select Existing to look for new ideas on how to quantify value. Simply browse through the list of value drivers using the filters to search what others have done. In either case, it's very likely you will need to do some editing to adapt the selected formula for your specific purposes. For instance, I may want to add new variables, update the formula, and so on. This concludes value drivers.